They cornered me in my own kitchen, blocking the doorway like prison guards. Tiffany gave me that fake sweet smile and said, "Old lottery winners have accidents all the time. Very easy targets." Kevin nodded right along, loyal as ever. And that's when it hit me, my own son was threatening me for money. But what they didn't know was that I'd been recording everything for weeks. Every word, every scheme. I was building a case that would destroy their lives. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. But first, let me back up and tell you how it all started 6 months ago. I was just Dorothy Williams, 72 years old, a widow living in what I thought was a loving home with my son Kevin and his wife Tiffany in Colorado Springs. I'd moved in 2 years earlier after my Harold passed. I thought we were helping each other heal, me helping them with the kids, them helping me through my grief. Kevin runs a struggling car dealership, one of those men who's learned to smile through financial stress but never learned how to manage money. At 45, he still had that boyish charm that once fooled me into thinking he'd inherited his father's integer. Tiffany, 38, works in pharmaceutical sales. She's got that polished, desperate energy, designer everything, all on credit, holding up an image while secretly drowning in debt. Their kids, Tyler and Emma, are good kids, caught in the middle, torn between loving their grandmother and staying loyal to their parents, who were slowly poisoning our family dynamic. Tyler's 16, working part-time to save for college because his parents already spent his college fund. Emma's 13, wise beyond her years and often the only one who treated me like a real person. The first crack in my illusion came from months ago. I got up for water around midnight and overheard Kevin and Tiffany talking in their bedroom. Their voices were low but sharp. "We can't keep carrying her," Tiffany said. "The groceries, the utilities, everything. We're barely covering our own expenses. She's my mother, Tiff. She's a financial burden we can't afford. Cedar Grove Nursing Home has payment plans. Medicare would cover most of it." I froze in the hallway as I listened to them discuss shipping me off like unwanted furniture. "Mom would never agree to a nursing home," Kevin said. "Mom doesn't have to agree. We get power of attorney, declare her mentally declining, and make the decision for her own good." The casual cruelty in her voice took my breath away. These weren't desperate people making hard choices. They were cold, calculating, and ready to steal my freedom just to make their lives easier. That's when I started paying attention, really paying attention. Over the next few weeks, I began to see things I'd ignored before: how they spoke about me like I wasn't there, how Tiffany calculated my costs down to individual meals, how Kevin avoided being alone with me, letting her handle the fake affection. Then one day, I accidentally saw bank statements on Kevin's desk. That's when the truth hit me. They weren't just struggling, they were drowning. $47,000 in credit card debt, 3 months behind on the mortgage, car payments they couldn't afford on luxury vehicles bought to keep up appearances. They were desperate and I was their only way out. 2 months ago, I bought a lottery ticket. Not out of hope, out of rebellion. I was tired of feeling like an unwanted guest in my own family's home. That $5 felt like the ultimate act of defiance against people who counted every bite I took. Then it happened. $127 million. I sat in that convenience store parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the ticket, not celebrating, just thinking. I had power now, real power. The question was, what would I do with it? Most people would have packed their bags and started over. But not me. I didn't just want to escape, I wanted justice. I wanted the world to see who Kevin and Tiffany really were beneath their perfect little act. That's when I reached out to Daniel Rodriguez, an investigative journalist I'd seen on a local news segment about elder abuse. Our meeting at a downtown coffee shop changed everything, Mrs. Williams, Daniel said after I told him everything. "What you're describing is textbook financial elder abuse, the nursing home threats, the power of attorney discussions. This is criminal behavior," Daniel said. "Can you document it with your permission?" "Of course." "Absolutely," I replied. "Hidden cameras, audio equipment," he continued. "But I have to warn you, once they find out about the money, things could get ugly fast." I smiled for the first time in months. "Mr. Rodriguez, ugly is exactly what I'm hoping for." The installation took place while Kevin and Tiffany were at work and the kids were at school. Daniel's team was professional, discreet, and incredibly thorough. Tiny cameras were hidden inside decorative objects, and the audio recorders were so sensitive they could capture whispers from another room. "Everything records to encrypted drives," Daniel explained. "We'll document their behavior for several weeks. Then, once we reveal your lottery winnings, we'll see how they react to you having money." The first test came sooner than either of us expected. That evening, Kevin approached me while I was reading in the living room. "Mom, we need to discuss your living arrangements," he said. I looked up, fully aware the hidden camera in the bookshelf was capturing his serious expression. "What about them, honey?" I asked. Tiffany appeared, holding a stack of printed documents. We've been researching senior living communities, she said smoothly. Some really nice places with people your own age, senior living communities. The euphemism made my skin crawl. I'm comfortable here, I said simply, but are you really? Tiffany asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. She sat down beside me. You spend so much time alone. Wouldn't you be happier somewhere with activities? Social opportunities? I studied her face, the same woman who was now trying to sell me on my own exile. I have social opportunities, I said. I have my family. Kevin shifted in his seat. Mom, that's the thing. Tiffany and I are entering a demanding phase of our careers. I'm being considered for regional manager, which means longer hours, more travel, and I might be transferring to the Denver office, Tiffany added seamlessly. The commute would be brutal and we'd need help with the kids after school, help with the kids. I'd been doing that for 2 years, but apparently it no longer counted. What exactly are you saying? I asked, though I already knew. We just think it would be better for everyone if you had your own place, Kevin said. More independence for you and more space for us to handle our changing situation, more space. As if I were overcrowding their lives. Have you looked at any specific places? I asked. Tiffany's face brightened, thinking she was winning me over. Cedar Grove has a beautiful facility about 20 minutes from here. We could visit every week. Every week? I repeated. Down from every day. What would something like that cost? It's quite reasonable, Tiffany said, though she carefully avoided giving me numbers. There are payment plans and Medicare covers a significant portion, but not all of it. Never all of it, I nodded slowly. Let me think about it. When they finally left the room, I sat there with my book, knowing every word had been recorded. Tomorrow, I'd call the lottery office and move on to the next phase of my plan. That night, through the thin walls, I heard them again. She's not taking the hint, Tiffany said. We need to be more direct. Give her time to adjust to the idea, Kevin. We don't have time, she snapped. The mortgage payment's due in 2 weeks and we're already behind. We need that room to generate rental income, or we need her out so we can downsize. Rental income. They wanted to rent out my room to strangers. What if she just refuses to go? Kevin asked. Then we make the decision for her, Tiffany said coldly. She's 72, Kevin. Who's going to question our judgment about what's best for our elderly mother? Our elderly mother. Not his mother, ours, like I was some shared piece of property to be managed. The next morning, I drove to the lottery office with a smile on my face for the first time in months. Mrs. Williams. Congratulations, said Sarah from the Lottery Commission. How would you like to proceed with your winnings? I'd spent weeks planning my answer. I want the lump sum transferred to a private account. No publicity. No press releases. She nodded. After federal and state taxes, that will be approximately $63 million. $63 million. More than enough to buy justice. There's something else, I said. I'm working with a journalist on a story about elder abuse. I need the funds available but untouched until a specific date, within days. Dorothy Williams had $63 million sitting, untouched in a private account at First National Bank, but Kevin and Tiffany still saw me as their impoverished burden. The pressure ramped up fast. Mom, did you call Cedar Grove yet? Kevin asked 3 days later during dinner. I've been thinking about what you said. I replied carefully. About needing space. Tiffany's eyes lit up immediately. When I mentioned the news, Kevin's face lit up with fake excitement. What exactly did they say? He asked. Something about $25,000 right away and $1,000 every week after that, I replied, keeping up my confused old lady act. But it's probably a scam, right? Not necessarily, Tiffany said quickly, her voice suddenly bright with interest. Publishers Clearinghouse is legitimate. Maybe we should look into this more carefully. Look into this. Translation, figure out how to get control of the money. I don't know, I said, pretending to hesitate. It just seems too good to be true. These things do happen, Mom, Kevin assured me. Remember the Hendersons down the street? They won $50,000 in a radio contest 2 years ago. The Hendersons had actually won $500, not $50,000. But Kevin was already rewriting history to make his story fit. What are you thinking of doing with the money? Tiffany asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. I hadn't thought about it, I lied smoothly. I suppose I should pay you back for everything you've spent on me. Their eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. Mom, that's very thoughtful, Kevin said, his voice full of false modesty. But family helps family. You don't owe us anything. The hypocrisy was staggering. Just a day ago, they were threatening to charge me $2,000 a month or send me off to a nursing home. Now that I might have money, suddenly I didn't owe them a thing. But maybe, Tiffany said carefully, we could help you manage it. Large sums of money can be overwhelming for someone who's never dealt with significant finances. Someone who's never dealt with significant finances. Like I was too stupid to understand how money worked. That's very kind, I said softly. But I think I can handle $1,000 a week. Of course you can. Kevin jumped in quickly. We just meant there are tax implications. Investment opportunities, we want to make sure you're protected. Protected from what? Making my own decisions? That evening, I heard them whispering again through the walls, forgetting, of course, that I had cameras and microphones recording every word. She's being naive about this, Tiffany said. Elderly people are prime targets for financial scams. She needs guidance. What kind of guidance? Kevin asked. A joint account? Maybe, she replied. Or power of attorney for financial decisions just to protect her. Power of attorney. The same plan they'd discussed months ago when they thought I was broke. I don't know. Tiff, Kevin said uncertainly. She's 72 years old and about to have access to over $500,000. Over the next 10 years, Tiffany pressed. Do you really think she's capable of managing that responsibly? So, apparently, I was too old and incompetent to manage my own money, but still young and capable enough to be kicked out and told to live alone. We need to be careful, Kevin said. We don't want her to think we're after her money. Of course, we're not after her money, Tiffany replied with that perfect tone of fake sincerity. We're protecting her from making mistakes that could hurt the whole family. Protecting the whole family. As if my money was somehow community property, I lay in bed that night, listening to their whispered plotting, and felt a deep, quiet satisfaction. Every manipulative word, every greedy idea, every scheme to control me was being recorded by Daniel's equipment. Tomorrow, I knew they'd make their move, and I would be ready. The confrontation came exactly as I expected. I was making breakfast when they appeared in the kitchen together like a coordinated attack team. Mom, we need to talk about your situation, Kevin began. What situation? I asked, still calmly scrambling eggs. Your windfall, Tiffany said, sitting down at the counter like she was settling in for a business meeting. We're concerned about your safety. I looked up, feigning confusion. My safety? Elderly people with sudden wealth are often targeted by criminals, Kevin explained in that patronizingly gentle voice. Scam artists, financial predators, even people who might try to take advantage of your generous nature. That sounds terrible, I said. What should I do? They exchanged that silent married couple look, the one that said they'd rehearsed this conversation. We think you should let us help you manage the money, Tiffany said. Nothing drastic, just a joint account so we can monitor for any suspicious activity. Monitor suspicious activity? I repeated. Like what? Unusual withdrawals, Kevin said. Investment schemes that seem too good to be true. People trying to befriend you for financial gain. People trying to befriend me for financial gain. The irony nearly made me laugh. But it's my money, I said, like the idea had just occurred to me. Of course it is, Kevin said quickly. We're not trying to control it. We just want to protect it. Protect it from what? I asked. Tiffany's patience was starting to crack. From you making impulsive decisions you might regret later, Tiffany said smoothly. Impulsive decisions? Like refusing to let them control me. I don't think I'm impulsive, I replied mildly. Mom. No offense, but you're not experienced with this kind of money, Kevin said. There are tax implications, investment strategies, legal considerations. It can be overwhelming. Overwhelming for someone my age, he meant. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. A joint checking account, Tiffany said quickly, where the money gets deposited. We'd all have access, but any major expenditures would be discussed as a family. Discussed as a family. Code for approved by them. And what would you consider a major expenditure? I asked. Anything over, say, $500, Kevin suggested. That gives you plenty of flexibility for day-to-day expenses while ensuring the bulk of the money is protected. $500. They wanted to put me on a $500 allowance from my own money. That seems reasonable, I said slowly, watching their faces light up with greedy satisfaction. We're also thinking, Tiffany added, that since you'll be staying here long-term now, we should formalize the arrangement. Maybe $1,500 a month for room and board. That's much less than Cedar Grove would have cost. $1,500 a month from my own winnings to live in their house, plus whatever they plan to siphon from the family account, and the rest of the money. I asked. We'd invest it conservatively, Kevin said. Build your nest egg for the future. Build my nest egg by giving them control of it. What do you think? Tiffany asked, flashing her practiced sales smile. I pretended to consider their generous offer to steal my money while charging me rent. It sounds like you've put a lot of thought into this, I said finally. We just want what's best for you. Mom, Kevin replied smoothly. And what if I don't want to put the money in a joint account? I asked. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Well, Kevin said carefully, That would be your choice, but it would make us very worried about your judgment. Your judgment. The first hint of the threat to come. Worried how? I asked. Tiffany leaned forward, her voice honey-sweet and full of malice. Dorothy. Elderly people who suddenly acquire wealth and then start making erratic financial decisions. Well, sometimes family members have to step in to protect them. Power of attorney by force. I see, I said evenly, and if you agreed to the joint account. Kevin added. Then we'd all be comfortable knowing your money was safe. Safe from me, he meant, that night. I heard their real conversation through the walls. She's going to fight us on this, Tiffany said. I could see it in her eyes. Maybe she'll come around, Kevin said. And if she doesn't? Kevin, this is over $500,000 we're talking about. Do you want to watch your mother blow it all on shopping channels and charity scams? I wasn't buying anything from shopping channels. And I hadn't donated a cent to charity scams, but truth didn't fit their story. What are you suggesting? Kevin asked. I'm suggesting, Tiffany said coldly, that old people with lots of cash become targets. And sometimes, accidents happen to targets. There it was, the threat I'd been waiting for, Tiffany. You can't be serious, Kevin said, his voice uneasy. I'm serious about protecting our family's future, she snapped. That money could pay off our debts, secure the kids' college funds, give us the life we deserve. Are we supposed to just watch her waste it because we're too polite to take control? Our family's future. My money had somehow become their inheritance, but the conversation that would destroy them was still ahead. The final confrontation came exactly 1 week later. I was making my morning coffee when they surrounded me in the kitchen, Kevin blocking the doorway, Tiffany standing between me and the phone. We need to settle this money situation today, Tiffany announced. What's to settle? I asked calmly. You've been avoiding the conversation about the joint account, Kevin said. We need a decision. I've been thinking about it for a week, Tiffany snapped, her patience finally gone. How long does it take to make a simple decision? A simple decision. As if signing over control of my fortune was no big deal. I'm not sure I want to put my money in a joint account, I said quietly. That's when the masks came off completely, Mom. That's not really your choice anymore, Kevin said, his tone turning hard. We've been patient, but your refusal to accept help is concerning. Concerning to whom? I asked. To us, Tiffany said sharply. To anyone who cares about your well-being. Elderly people who become paranoid about money management are showing signs of cognitive decline. Cognitive decline. The nuclear option. I'm not paranoid, I protested. I just want to control my own money. That's exactly what someone with impaired judgment would say. Tiffany replied smoothly. Dorothy, we've been documenting your erratic behavior for weeks. Your refusal to move into appropriate senior housing. Your paranoia about family members. Your inability to make rational financial decisions. Documenting my erratic behavior. They'd been building a case against my competence. What kind of documentation? I asked, though I already knew. Kevin pulled out a folder. Emails to your doctor about your increasing confusion. Notes about your memory lapses. Photographs of your medication mistakes. I'd never made any medication mistakes. We've also spoken to an attorney about emergency conservatorship procedures, Tiffany added. In cases where elderly people are at risk of financial exploitation or self-harm through poor judgment, family members can step in immediately. They'd consulted an attorney about stealing my autonomy. You can't do that, I whispered. We don't want to, Kevin said, his voice soft with fake regret. But if you force our hand by refusing reasonable assistance, theft disguised as kindness, what exactly do you want? I asked. Joint account with shared access, Tiffany listed smoothly. Monthly allowance of $500 for personal expenses. All major financial decisions made as a family, and if I agree, then you stay here, Kevin said. We manage your money responsibly and everyone's happy, and if I don't? Kevin and Tiffany exchanged that look again. The one that meant I was about to hear something terrible. Then we're forced to conclude that you're not competent to manage your affairs, Kevin said coldly. We'd file for emergency conservatorship and have you evaluated by medical professionals. Medical professionals. Ones they'd already primed with their fake documentation. You'd have me declared incompetent? We'd have you declared protected, Tiffany corrected, her tone syrupy sweet. Protected from your own poor judgment and from people who might take advantage of you. People like them, she meant. Though she'd never admit it. This is extortion, I said quietly. This is family intervention. Tiffany replied. Dorothy, you need to understand something. Old lottery winners have accidents all the time. Very easy targets. We're trying to prevent you from becoming a statistic. There it was, the threat I'd been waiting 6 weeks to hear. Kevin looked uncomfortable but didn't contradict his wife. So, Tiffany continued. What's it going to be? Cooperative family money management, or do we have to make these decisions for you? I looked at both of them, my son and his wife, standing in my kitchen, threatening to steal my money and my freedom if I didn't submit, and then I smiled. Did you get that? I asked, turning toward the decorative bowl on the counter. Their faces went white. Because Daniel Rodriguez and his documentary crew have been recording everything. For the past 6 weeks, I said calmly. And we now have comprehensive evidence of your plans to commit financial elder abuse, extortion, and conspiracy. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. What are you talking about? Kevin's voice cracked. I walked over to the bowl and lifted it, revealing the tiny camera underneath. This one's been here since the day after you first mentioned Cedar Grove. There are 5 others throughout the house, plus audio equipment, recording your late-night planning sessions. Tiffany was staring at the camera like it was a poisonous snake. You can't, this is illegal. She sputtered. Colorado is a one-party consent state, I explained cheerfully. As long as one person in the conversation knows about the recording, that would be me. It's perfectly legal. How long? Kevin whispered. 6 weeks of documentation, I said. Your threats to have me declared incompetent. Your plans to steal my money through fake conservatorship. Your little comment about lottery winners having accidents. I looked directly at Tiffany. That last part is going to be particularly interesting to prosecutors. The look of dawning horror on their faces was worth every moment of the past 6 weeks of abuse, but the real revelation was still to come. The silence in my kitchen was deafening. Kevin's face had gone gray and Tiffany looked like she might collapse. Both of them stared at the tiny camera I'd revealed as if it might suddenly explode. 6 weeks. Kevin's voice was barely a whisper. You've been recording us for 6 weeks? Kevin asked, his voice trembling. Every conversation, every threat, every plan to steal my autonomy and my money, I confirmed evenly, including last night's discussion about having me declared incompetent. And your charming wife's comment about accidents happening to lottery winners. Tiffany finally found her voice. This is entrapment. You tricked us. I documented you, I corrected. There's a difference. Entrapment is when law enforcement tricks someone into committing a crime they wouldn't normally commit. I simply recorded you being yourselves. Just then, Daniel Rodriguez stepped out from the pantry where he'd been monitoring the equipment. Kevin and Tiffany spun round like cornered animals. Daniel Rodriguez, investigative journalist. He said calmly, I've been documenting elder abuse cases for the past 3 years. Mrs. Williams contacted me after overhearing your initial conversations about power of attorney in nursing homes. You can't use this, Kevin said desperately. We're family. This is a private matter. Financial elder abuse is never a private matter, Daniel replied, adjusting his camera. It's a federal crime, especially when it involves threats of violence. Tiffany was crying now, though it was impossible to tell if it was from fear or anger. We never meant any of it, she said weakly. We were just frustrated. Stressed about money, stressed enough to threaten your mother-in-law's life? Daniel asked matter-of-factly. That was taken out of context. Tiffany snapped. What context? I asked quietly. Makes old lottery winners have accidents all the time acceptable? She had no answer. Kevin sank into a kitchen chair, his head in his hands. Mom, you don't understand. We owe $47,000 on credit cards. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. The dealership is cutting commissions by 30%. We're drowning. For the first time in weeks. My son sounded genuinely human, desperate, not deceitful. But that didn't excuse what they'd planned. So you decided the solution was to rob me? I said flatly. We didn't think of it as robbing, Kevin muttered. We thought we were protecting you from making mistakes. By taking control of my money and charging me rent to live in your house? I asked. The room and board thing was Tiffany's idea, Kevin said quickly, throwing his wife under the bus with practiced ease. Tiffany's tears stopped instantly. Don't you dare blame this on me, Kevin. You were the one who said your mother owed us for 2 years of support. That we should calculate every grocery bill and utility payment. Because we can't afford to support another person. I watched them turn on each other and felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was what financial stress had done to my family. It had turned them into predators willing to devour anyone, even me. There's something else you should know, I said quietly. Both of them looked at me, faces pale with dread. The publisher's clearinghouse call was fake. I never won $25,000 and $1,000 a week. What? Tiffany's voice cracked. I reached into my jewelry box and pulled out a folded bank statement I'd been saving for this very moment. I won the Powerball lottery 4 months ago. After taxes, I have 63.4 million in my account. The sound Kevin made wasn't entirely human. Tiffany grabbed the counter to keep from falling. 63 million, I continued. calm and deliberate, which I've been very careful not to touch, while we documented exactly how you treated a woman you believed had modest winnings. Why? Kevin whispered. If you had that kind of money, why didn't you just leave? Because I wanted the world to see who you really are, I said. I wanted documentation of how my own family treated me when they thought I was vulnerable. And I wanted to make sure this never happens to another elderly person. Daniel was still filming, capturing every moment, their faces, their reactions, their shame. This footage would become part of a documentary airing in 6 months. After the legal proceedings were complete, what happens now? Tiffany asked shakily. Now, I said, you live with the consequences of your choices. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Kevin and Tiffany spent the rest of the day frantically calling lawyers, trying to understand their legal exposure. Daniel interviewed them both on camera, giving them a chance to explain themselves. Kevin's interview was painful to watch. My son, stripped of his salesman charm, forced to confront his own actions, looked like a broken man. I never wanted it to go this far, he said, eyes red. The money stress, the pressure from Tiffany, the feeling that mom didn't appreciate what we were doing for her. It just snowballed. When did you first discuss taking control of your mother's finances? Daniel asked. Kevin was silent for a long time before answering. About 6 months ago. We were fighting about the mortgage payment and Tiff said mom should be contributing more. Then she said, maybe mom wasn't capable of making good decisions about money. Did you believe that? Daniel pressed. Kevin sighed. I wanted to believe it because it made things easier. If mom wasn't competent, then we could make decisions for her own good. Tiffany's interview was much more defensive. She insisted that everything they'd done was motivated by genuine concern for my well-being, though she couldn't explain how. Charging me rent from my own money was supposed to be an act of care. Dorothy is 72 years old, she said. Elderly people with sudden wealth are vulnerable to scams, poor decisions. We were just trying to protect her by threatening her with involuntary commitment if she didn't comply? Daniel asked. Tiffany hesitated. That was a last resort. We hoped she'd see reason. And the comment about lottery winners having accidents? Tiffany's composure finally cracked. I was angry, she said, voice trembling. People say things when they're angry. Do you understand? Daniel said evenly. That threatening to harm an elderly person for financial gain is a felony? She broke down crying again. The children's reactions were the hardest to bear. Tyler, 16 and old enough to understand what was happening, was furious at his parents for their greed, at me for the deception, and at the entire situation for tearing the family apart. Why couldn't you just work it out as a family? He asked me that evening. Because your parents weren't treating me as family, I told him gently. They were treating me as a financial obstacle to be eliminated. Emma, just 13 and still trying to make sense of it all, asked the question that pierced me the deepest. Are you really never coming back, Grandma? I hugged her tightly. Sweetheart, I'm moving to a different house, but I'm not disappearing. You can visit me anytime you want, but it won't be the same. She was right. Nothing would ever be the same again. In the days that followed, I started looking for a new home with a realtor's help. Not the Grand Wilson place I'd impulsively mentioned during our confrontation that had just been dramatic flair for the cameras. Instead, I found a modest 3-bedroom house about 10 minutes away. Big enough for the grandchildren to visit, but small enough for me to manage comfortably on my own. The purchase process took about 6 weeks, normal for real estate, despite what movies make it seem. During that time, I stayed in a hotel, giving Kevin and Tiffany space to process what had happened, while keeping my own distance for safety. Daniel's preliminary footage was powerful enough to attract attention from several TV networks. We ultimately signed with Channel 9 for a 1-hour documentary special with the understanding that nothing would air until all legal proceedings were finished. Those legal proceedings began 2 months later. Detective Sarah Martinez from the Colorado Springs Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit contacted me in early October. She was a serious woman in her 40s with 15 years of experience investigating elder abuse. Mrs. Williams, she said, I've reviewed the footage provided by Mr. Rodriguez. There's sufficient evidence for criminal charges. But I need to ask, do you want to press charges against your own son and daughter-in-law? It was the question I'd been dreading. Detective, I asked. If Kevin and Tiffany had succeeded in their plan, what would have happened to me? Based on their recorded conversations, she explained, they would have filed for emergency conservatorship. Had you declared incompetent, gained control of your finances, and likely placed you in a nursing facility against your will, and I would have had no recourse? I asked quietly. She shook her head. Once someone is declared incompetent, challenging that determination is extremely difficult. You would have been legally powerless. That settled it. File the charges, I said. The indictment came down 3 weeks later. Kevin was charged with conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse and making false statements to obtain conservatorship. Tiffany faced the same charges plus criminal threats against an elderly person. For her comment about accidents, the local news coverage was extensive, but to their credit, it remained respectful. The story had everything the media usually jumps on: family betrayal, hidden cameras, dramatic revelations, yet most reporters focused on the larger issue of elder abuse, rather than turning our family tragedy into entertainment. Kevin and Tiffany's lives fell apart quickly after that. Kevin's car dealership fired him almost immediately. They couldn't have someone under investigation for elder abuse representing their business. Tiffany's pharmaceutical company placed her on unpaid administrative leave. While they waited for the outcome of the criminal case, their social circle vanished overnight. Friends stopped calling. Neighbors who once waved and chatted now greeted them with stiff politeness, avoiding eye contact. Meanwhile, Tyler and Emma had to face the whispers at school. Classmates murmuring about their parents being on the news for threatening their own grandmother. I felt truly sorry for those children. None of it was their fault, yet they were the ones carrying the weight of their parents' actions. That's why, one evening in early November, I decided to talk to them directly. I found Tyler at the grocery store where he'd recently started a part-time job to help with bills at home. "Hi, sweetheart," I said softly. He looked up, startled, and then looked around quickly, almost embarrassed to be seen with me. "Hi, Grandma. How are you doing?" "How do you think I'm doing?" I asked gently. His voice came out sharp, full of frustration. "My parents might go to prison. We'll probably lose the house. Everyone at school knows about it because it was on the news. I'm sorry you're going through this." I said, "Are you?" His eyes flashed. "Because it kind of seems like you planned all of this." It was a fair accusation. In a way, I had planned it not to hurt them, but to protect myself. "Tyler," I said carefully, "if someone tried to steal your college fund and have you declared incompetent so they could control your life, what would you do?" He frowned. "They're not strangers, Grandma. They're my parents. They love you," I said. "But do they love me?" "Because people who truly love you don't plan to lock you in a nursing home and take your money." He went quiet for a long moment. "Dad says they were just trying to protect you." "From what?" I asked. He didn't have an answer. "Tyler, I want you to understand something," I continued. "I was planning to share the lottery money with all of you, college funds for you and Emma, paying off your parents' debts, maybe even helping them buy a bigger home." His eyes widened. "Really? Really?" I said. "If they had just been patient and kind, they could have had everything they wanted. Instead, they chose greed. How much would you have given them?" He asked. "Probably around $2 million. I said. Tyler actually staggered a bit. $2 million? And they threw that away by trying to steal from you? Greed makes people stupid, sweetheart," I said sadly. "Your parents could have been millionaires if they'd just treated me with basic respect." That conversation changed something in him. Over the next few weeks, Tyler started asking his parents harder questions. Emma followed his lead. Slowly, both of them began to see that I hadn't destroyed their family, their parents' greed had. By March, 9 months after that confrontation in the kitchen, the trial finally began. Kevin and Tiffany had separate attorneys, which told me everything I needed to know about their marriage. Kevin's lawyer, David Chen, painted him as a man under financial stress who made bad choices but never meant any real harm. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Chen began, "this case is about a son trying to help his aging mother make responsible financial decisions. Were his methods perfect? No. Did he sometimes express frustration inappropriately? Yes, but was there criminal intent to defraud an elderly person? Absolutely not." Tiffany's attorney, Maria Santos, took a very different approach. She threw Kevin under the bus. She described Tiffany as a woman manipulated by her husband's desperation. Mrs. Tiffany Williams was dragged into this situation by a husband whose financial recklessness put their entire family under pressure, Santos argued. Any inappropriate comments she made were born out of frustration, not criminal intent. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Robert Kim, had a simpler story and a stronger one. This case, the prosecutor began, is about greed, about two adults who saw an elderly family member as an obstacle to their financial goals, and who were willing to use any means necessary to remove that obstacle, including threats of violence. My testimony lasted 2 full days. I walked the jury through the recordings one by one, explaining the context of each conversation and what it felt like to hear my own family plotting against me. Double quotes Mrs. Williams, Kim asked gently, "When you heard your son and daughter-in-law discussing power of attorney and nursing homes, what did you think?" "I thought they were planning to steal my freedom," I replied. And I was right. Kevin's testimony was the hardest to sit through. My son, under oath, and facing prison had to acknowledge the full scope of what he and Tiffany had done. Did you and your wife discuss having your mother declared incompetent? Kim asked. Kevin hesitated. Yes, he said quietly. For what purpose? To gain control of her finances? Kevin's voice dropped so low the microphone barely picked it up. Yes, then came Tiffany's turn. Her testimony was combative from the start. She insisted that everything they'd done was motivated by genuine concern for me. Even when the prosecution played recordings of her calculating my grocery expenses and talking about how much rental income I was worth, when you said, old lottery winners have accidents all the time, what did you mean? Kim asked. I meant they're vulnerable to scams and exploitation, Tiffany snapped back. By people like you? Kim countered. Objection. Her attorney, Santos, called out. Sustained, said the judge, but the damage was done. The jury had heard enough. They deliberated for 6 hours over today's. When they finally returned, their expressions were grim. On the charge of conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse, the foreperson read, we find the defendant, Kevin Williams, guilty. I watched Kevin's shoulders slump as the words hit him. On the charge of conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse, she continued, we find the defendant, Tiffany Williams, guilty, and on the additional charge of criminal threats against an elderly person, we find the defendant, Tiffany Williams, guilty. Sentencing came 6 weeks later. Kevin received 14 months in minimum security federal prison and 3 years of supervised probation. Tiffany got 18 months plus probation, the extra time because of her threats. Both were ordered to complete 200 hours of community service at elder care facilities. After their release, I felt no satisfaction watching them led away in handcuffs. Only a deep, quiet sadness that our family had come to this, but something bigger came out of it. The documentary, The Grandmother Who Fought Back, aired 6 months after the trial. It didn't just tell my story, it started a national conversation about elder abuse. It even helped inspire legislative changes in several states. More importantly, it gave courage to others. I began receiving hundreds of letters from elderly people who recognized their own lives in mine. People who were being controlled, manipulated, or stolen from by the very families they'd trusted most. That's what led me to create the Dorothy Williams Foundation for Elder Justice. Using part of my lottery winnings, I started a nonprofit that provides legal help, temporary housing, and support for elderly people trying to escape financial abuse. In our first year, we helped 89 families. We funded lawyers to fight illegal conservatorships, gave safe housing to seniors who needed to leave toxic situations, and pushed for stronger laws and enforcement. But most importantly, we proved something vital. Being old doesn't mean being powerless. Tyler and Emma visit me often. Tyler's now at Colorado State University, studying business, determined never to repeat his parents' mistakes. Emma's a high school sophomore and volunteers at the foundation's office on weekends. Kevin and Tiffany served their full sentences. Federal prison doesn't offer early release for good behavior. They divorced while incarcerated, each blaming the other for everything that happened. Kevin now works at a small used car lot in Pueblo, earning about a third of what he once made. He lives in a modest apartment and pays child support to Tiffany, who moved back in with her parents, and Emma. We see each other occasionally at Tyler's graduation, Emma's birthdays, but our relationship will never be what it once was. Too much trust was broken. Too much damage done. Last year, Kevin sent me a letter 2 years after his release, apologizing and asking if we could rebuild our relationship. I wrote back with just one sentence. The foundation is always looking for volunteers. I wrote, if you ever want to make amends, helping other families avoid what happened to us would be a good place to start. Kevin never replied, but Tyler did volunteer. And Emma told me she plans to study elder law in college. My grandchildren learned from their parents' mistakes in ways that give me hope for the future. At 72, I've learned something I wish I'd known sooner. Family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes the people who claim to love you are the ones most willing to hurt you. And sometimes, complete strangers become your family when they stand beside you in fights you can't face alone. The Dorothy Williams Foundation now operates in 12 states. We've helped more than 400 families escape situations of elder abuse, challenged 73 fraudulent conservatorships, and helped seniors recover over $8 million in stolen assets. But the real victories aren't about money or legal wins. They're about dignity, about elderly people who finally understand they're worth protecting, and families who've learned that respect isn't optional just because someone is old. I never set out to be a symbol for elder rights. I just wanted justice for what my own family had done to me. But sometimes, personal justice grows into something larger, a movement, a cause, a reason to keep fighting even when your own battle is over. At 72, I discovered I was worth fighting for. Now. I spend my days helping other elderly people discover the same truth, and honestly, that, more than any lottery jackpot, feels like winning. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've experienced something similar, please share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.